get into it for today. So welcome everyone to the Pre-Sales Pathways panel. Today's session is really going to be focused on hearing some stories from people who've made the transition into pre-sales. But before I get into that, let me do a quick introduction of myself so y'all know who's chatting with you. But my name is Nina Berger. I am the Senior Career Services Manager for PreSales Collective. I work specifically with our PreSales Academy program, so helping people make the transition from a variety of backgrounds into pre-sales. So I work with a lot of career changers, but I also get to partner with our other enablement programs here at PreSales Collective. It's a small team, so we always get to kind of work and dabble in our own different areas and also cross collaborate. So it's super fun. There will be a recording for this session, so do not worry if you cannot stick around for the whole thing. It will be available on the PreSales Collective member hub later this week. So let's get into why does this panel exist? Why are y'all here? So when we were thinking about putting together a panel for the community, we really wanted to really provide a space for new, existing solutions consultants, sales engineers to share their experiences, learn from each other, because ultimately getting into this profession and having this career is really unique. I feel like I constantly am hearing different stories from individuals on how they've made the shift into this profession. And I find that if you are one exploring or looking to, change your current pathway or take that next step in your current pre-sales career, it's really important to hear from other people, because that is how you're going to gain more perspectives and really kind of broaden your outlook on what could be possible for you in the future. But also this panel is for connection. I'm hoping that y'all can leverage this space to build connections with other people in the audience as well as our panelists, because that is what we're here for at PreSales Collective. We want y'all to contribute to the growth in your career, and a really great way to do that is through building a strong community and stronger networking connections. But this event is also really built off of what we like to call the PreSales Pathways Report. So if y'all didn't see this come out end of last fall, do not worry. But I will drop the chat so you can download your own report. But basically last fall, we put together a report on a lot of different pre-sales professionals and got some insight into how did they transition into this profession? Are there commonalities in that journey? And it was a really cool report to put together. It really gave us some great insights into what might be necessary when considering this profession, as well as what you need to keep in mind as you're continuing to move forward and grow within this community and profession. So the Pre-Sales Pathways Report is what kind of started this event. We wanted to create an event not only to highlight this report, but also to complement this community and hear from people who kind of fit into this report's targeted depth groups that we kind of took the data from to put it together. But overall, this report focused on how'd you get into pre-sales. It really explored the diverse career trajectories of pre-sales professionals. We took insights from over like 3,500 pre-sales professionals through LinkedIn, and it all gave us a really cool comprehensive view of potential career paths people have taken into the profession. And also it has been a really cool report to look back on, to think about, hey, how might I be changing my recruiting strategies, especially as a manager for a team? Or how can I gain clarity if I want to go on this pathway in the future? So what I'm going to share for y'all, just to kick off this session, is some cool facts that I took away from the reports to kind of ground us before we go into our panelist conversation. So one cool thing that was coming out of the report was around job titles. So what we saw within our collection of data is between 2016 and 2022, we saw a strong increase in the unique number of job titles that shifted into pre-sales. It increased about 125% over the span of time. And this really showed that, we are seeing professionals from more varied backgrounds coming into this profession, and showing that there's going to be a broader spectrum of people coming into pre-sales, and that's probably not going to be slowing down in the next coming years. Another cool fact that we saw was around education. we saw that over 77% of pre-sales professionals hold a bachelor's degree, which we indicated as probably going to be a more of a key requirement for entering the profession, even though we did see some professionals who did not have that degree behind them. And another interesting note that we kind of pulled out from our education analysis was there is also a slight uptick in people and professionals with master's and MBA degrees, which might suggest within the profession that, hey, you know, this degree that's a little bit elevated could be helpful, but it's not necessary for this profession, which is interesting to keep in mind, especially when you're thinking about the variety of roles out there in the larger job spectrum. There are roles that are going to require a master's degree, but it's nice to know that, hey, if you have a bachelor's degree, that's kind of common for the base level of this profession. And the last fun fact that I want to share with y'all is around lateral movements. So we discovered that 71% of people who entered the pre-sales profession actually made a lateral movement from their prior profession. So that showcases that a lot of people did jump from one industry to the next. And while there were about 18% of people who were able to switch into more of a senior role when they were changing their profession, it's been noted that usually we'll have to see a lateral change before coming into this profession, which I thought was interesting because I know there is definitely a rise in people trying to leverage and stay internally at their company, but there still is a large population of people who will have to go outside their company to make the shift into pre-sales. But those were some cool facts that we took. And overall, what I really have seen from this report is there is continued growth and elevation in pre-sales. We are seeing an increasing demand of professionals who really need to bridge the gap between technical capabilities and business value. And what I thought was also really important for those who are aspiring to this profession is there is this kind of common ground of you need strong technical foundations. You need to know the industry trends for the verticals you're kind of focusing in on, and those communication and presentation skills are going to be key with driving your experience. But that's what we really found within this report. And we created this report to really educate our profession, to make sure y'all have some insights into what we're seeing in the bigger picture, because we find that the creation of these resources, in addition to our other resources within the community, really can allow y'all to deepen your impact and just have a little bit more context to the work you're doing. One thing that's really come out of this report is also people who are ready to kind of take a change and ready to dive in and explore this profession. So just so that I don't forget to mention these at the end of our presentation, I do want to highlight some quick enablement resources that might be helpful as you're coming out of this panelist conversation. So within PreSales Collective, as a member, you do have access to free as well as some cohort-based experiences. So if you come out of this panel being like, hey, I loved everything that people are sharing, I want to learn more, I have some great self-paced programs for y'all to consider. We have an intro to pre-sales course as well as a technical enablement course. They're all available on our PreSales Collective website for y'all to explore. And just because y'all are signed up for the event, you'll get an email to link you to these events. But if you're someone who wants a deeper experience, we also have our cohort-based programs like PreSales Academy or PreSales Foundations, which they're great programs, especially if you're a career changer, or if you're someone who's early on in your career and you're like, hey, I want to build out my foundational skills more just so I can have increased stability and more impact and contribution to my team long-term in the profession. But those are just a few of the resources within the enablement side of PreSales Collective that I wanted to highlight. And with that in mind, with our pre-sales report, and let's get into why we're really here today. Because it is because of our panel. And I am excited for y'all to start engaging with our panelists because I've been doing way too much talking in this space. So I am going to have us start with some introductions of our panelists. So the way we're going to do introductions today might be a little bit different than what you're used to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have all of our panelists introduce themselves, share your name, what are you currently doing right now, where are you calling from, and then I would love for you to tell me about your journey into pre-sales. what inspired you to pursue this career path, and really how'd you get started? And I think that'll be a really good starting place for our conversation. So I will have Nikki start this conversation for us.
First and foremost, I'm ready. No. So I'm Mickey Camarco. I'm calling in from Philadelphia. Currently in between jobs, but previously senior solutions engineer at Reprise. And what inspired me to pursue this career path? Did I miss anything on the first question?
No, you're good.
All right. So what inspired me? So I actually have a really unique background, so it's very fitting to the conversation today. I bounce around between a lot of different industries and roles. I worked in wastewater, beauty, manufacturing supply, commercial real estate, hardware sales. I kind of bounce around in all these different areas. And I was really interested in one part across the board, which was connecting with people, solving problems, playing around with different technologies. And I ended up having a conversation with my now mentor. His name's Vadim. He's the VP of Global Solutions Engineering at Nintex. And we just happened to have a conversation, and he was telling me, you're a great fit for a solutions engineer role. I said, that's not possible. I went to school for business. I have a minor in law. There's no way I could be a solutions engineer. And after a conversation, he really convinced me. They happened to open up a role. I got that position through the long interview process, which I really didn't think I would get, and fell into the position of solutions engineering and absolutely fell in love. Like, that was it. I got the opportunity. I was able to learn the technology. And one of the perks of it was I got into this role and was able to say, hey, I don't come from the technical background, but I can teach you guys who know the technical stuff how to use the business acumen and vice versa. And yeah, that's it.
Nice. No,
Long
I
intro.
love that. No, perfect. Awesome. I am going to have Tobias share his story.
Yeah. Yeah, hello, and thanks for having me here. Yeah, my name is Tobias. I'm from Frankfurt, Germany. And yeah, I'm in my role since almost 8, 9 years. And before I was a tech recruiter to help people to land their hopefully dream jobs in tech. And then at one moment, I was thinking, oh, I have to help myself to land a role in tech. And I started to become a solutions consultant for agile and work management solutions. And for me, the most exciting part was that I could work in my favorite topic. So that was agile. And Mickey, you already mentioned it. It's what exciting about this role is that you have this constant change, which some people love, some people don't. But if you love constant change, and I love constant improvement, then this is a wonderful role because you always have to use your creativity to find new and simplified ways to help clients make their life easier and better. And yeah, not yeah. So this is actually my story, and yeah.
I love that. Thank you, Tobias. Awesome. Let's hand it over to Jordan.
Hi, y'all. I'm Jordan Kolker. I'm a solutions consultant at Ontic, which is a security software platform. But similar to Mickey, I've bounced around a lot. I studied public relations, really wanted to work for music festivals, but needed to pay the bills after graduation. So I took a role as an SDR to start. And then thankfully, luckily, was moved into an intelligence analyst position within my company. And so I got to use the platform as a, core user would. I got to work with clients day in and day out, served as an extension of their team, which was very cool. And that kind of led to me being able to, one, have a deep technical understanding of our platform and get a lot of face time with our clients, which was really important. And then naturally that kind of led into a position as a solutions consultant. One of my mentors kind of tapped me on the shoulder and was like, hey, you'd be great at this. Think you should do it. And I at first was a little hesitant, but then decided, I was like, okay, I love our platform. I love talking about it and educating people about it. And that's really what I've come to enjoy with the SC position. And I've been doing that now for about 2 years.
Nice. I love that. And over to Tyler.
Yeah, so I'll close us out. Nice to meet everybody. Tyler Kimball. I am fortunate enough that in my current role, I lead a global team of solution consultants, mainly focused on the prospect side. I work at a company called iSIMS. We are a talent acquisition software. I'm coming in from Homedale, New Jersey. So if you are a Apple TV subscriber, you may recognize the background. It's part of Severance. So I was waiting for Anita to ask a fun fact for myself as well. I know Severance is filmed here. I have never actually watched the show, but I've seen Ben Stiller in the building kind of filming, and I didn't appreciate all the times they blocked the parking lot off for that said filming. But My journey, similar to some of the call outs from Mickey, as far as being told or asked about the role, I joined iCIMS in 2012 as a business systems analyst, or essentially a product manager. In that role, I really truly enjoyed working with different departments to kind of get feedback, and took really a lot of pride in the features and products my team were building out. And what I quickly realized at that stage of my career was engaging with sales also helped motivate and drive some of my roadmap enhancements that I needed. So I really actively reached out to the sales department to see, what features they're being asked for. And then I took it upon myself to kind of reach out to multiple different customers to get their feedback. And kind of that engagement is something I really started to thrive in and on. Where my story kind of went to pre-sales was, at the time, iCIMS roughly was around like a little over 100 employees. I think I was an employee of 106 at the time. And our CEO in the meeting apparently said that I would be a good sales engineer. And when your CEO says you'd be a good fit for the role, I think you take it pretty seriously. So I reached out to the manager of that team for a quick, check-in. I never thought my career would lead into sales. Full stop. I went to school to become a mechanical engineer, automotive industry, did one internship, quickly realized that this was not the career path for me. So I switched to business and technology. So coming out of college, I was in a business type role. I never thought sales was it. But when I learned more about pre-sales and the dynamic role it was, and how you could be flexible, it allowed for travel, where I was in my life, the travel, the exposure, and let's be real, the additional compensation that came with moving from a product role to sales was something I jumped at. So it kind of led me to this role. And I'm fortunate enough now to be in a leadership role. And one of the reasons why I joined the PreSales Collective is I'm truly passionate about helping others get exposure to this dynamic role, but also growing their career. So I know we mentioned it and you did a good job as far as networking, but happy to reach out and provide any insight I can. So thanks for joining today.
Nice. No, thank you, Tyler. I should have said fun facts. I'm sorry I took that
I was
moment
playing
away.
for it. That was the one thing I was talking to Mickey prior. I was like, I don't really, I don't like scripting answers when that kind of free form. But I was like, I gotta be ready for the fun fact question. And it was going to be that. So
I don't like throwing people off because I'm usually the one who's like, oh, I don't have a fun fact. And I'll go back to something really random. And I'm like, oh, I wrote in college.
my other fun fact was going to be that if you have children, which I have 2 young children, and if you allow them to cough in your face with your mouth open, you will get sick, which is why I'm now congested. So that's fun.
Fair. That's fair. Well, thank you everyone for those great introductions and your backstories. I think what's really interesting is like, as we can see, even in this space, there is such variety in the paths y'all took to pre-sales. A lot of y'all were like, I didn't know this profession existed, or I never thought I'd end up in sales. And you've kind of wound your way into this role where that you've really found a passion and a joy for. And I think that's kind of what's funny about like this event being juxtaposed with the PreSales Pathways Report. It's just like y'all are the different diverse titles and experiences that kind of led to the fact that we're seeing an increase in titles going into this profession, and we're seeing so much variety coming into this role. So let's dive into some questions because I know y'all have such wisdom to share. So I'm going to start with a question about skills and experiences. So I'm kind of curious because y'all highlighted all your different paths about, what skills or experiences from your previous roles have been the most transferable or valuable for your role in pre-sales.
I can hop in first.
Okay.
For me, I think the number one thing, like I mentioned, I don't come from a technical background at all. Business law, all of that. The number one thing that I think carried over and is the most important is problem solving, communication, making sure you're hearing, speaking, actually having those conversations, and then your ability to learn. Because you may not have the technical skills, but you can use your ability to learn those technical skills on the role and use your other skills that transfer into it.
Mhm.
What's that?
I'll just build on.
Yeah.
I think. Sorry, Tobias, you want to go?
No, just, you can go.
I will say, just kind of building off Mickey's theme as far as learning, growth mindset is big for me. I worked at Microsoft for a few years, and that was a big Satya kind of mindset of kind of making sure we're always looking to learn. And I think taking that learning and some other skills you want to make sure you're always applying it. A great solution consultant is really good at problem solving. and really good at active listening. And by being able to take those two and kind of apply them, that's where, and obviously knowing your industry and knowing your product you're selling, of course, you always got to stay up to speed on that, but it's how you take what you're hearing in real time, ask additional probing questions to learn more and problem solve, and then you can go back with some active consulting. Because again, the best solution consultants, you don't want to just be coming across as sales. You should be leaving that call. That team should be feeling like you're part of their organization as a trusted advisor.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, especially growth mindset is really key, because if you have a growth mindset, everything else will be easier for you. Because like you all both said, you have to learn. And if learning is really a have, not a, oh, I want to learn, I love to learn, then it's going to be tough. On the other side, if you love to learn, and that's what I would always recommend, is pick an industry that you love, that is easy for you, that is actually not work. So if you're, let's say, a software engineer, it's for cloud computing. I mean, and you say, oh, I would love to solve problems for clients. Focus on this industry. Don't try to spread yourself thin and apply for everybody and anything. Focus on this industry. And I would say the most transferable skill is on top of what you mentioned, and is like need analysis. So if we really understand what is the need that the client has, and often it's a need behind a need, that's a little bit tricky. Often the client has some challenges to articulate what they really want and what is in their way. And there are several professions who are doing this every day. Like I mentioned, recruiters are doing this to find the right people for a team. Software developer has to do this often as well, because they have to find a shorter way to develop a solution. So I would say need analysis, and yeah, definitely the growth mindset. If you have this, all doors will be open for you if you're going to apply.
I think something that goes really well with that need analysis is also empathy. You can't really do that if you're not empathetic. And I think the best SCs or solutions engineers or anyone in pre-sales are people that can have, those conversations, active listen the entire time, and then also be able to step into the shoes of that client and really feel that, understand their pain, and, really, really want to help them.
Yeah, I'm gonna just add to that really quick, because I think that it's top tier. My number one thing that I tell people, especially those who come from the more technical side and actually don't go the non-typical path, right? It's being able to build rapport with your clients, and that skill and pulling it over, because you can talk tech all day, you can have conversations all day, but if you don't have the ability to create and hold a conversation and build a connection with those folks, you're not really going to be able to continue through. So that's a really good skill to pull over.
People buy from people.
Exactly.
No, very well said. I find that just, especially in a role that jumps in at the middle of the sales process, you do need to be that person who, builds rapport, listens, has an empathetic mindset. And I'm curious, for Jordan, kind of based off your answer, how do you feel like you've kind of refined how you approach empathy in your customer conversations?
Yeah, great question. It's definitely a skill that, and a core value at my company. One of our core values is lead with empathy. So we're constantly talking about that in just the space that I'm in, physical security. We deal with a lot of unhappy situations, or our clients deal with a lot of life and death situations. So we actively have to practice that. And I think refining that in a way looks like, being a part of those conversations and really just understanding them, having the tough conversations, hearing about what your client is doing on a daily basis, what fires they're running to every day, why the call got canceled. Like, instead of being upset a call is getting canceled, it's hey, they're really dealing with an urgent matter and we need to understand that and kind of cut them some slack there. So it's something that I think everyone can still refine their entire lives. No one is perfect at empathy, at age 20. So it's something that we always have to be working towards. But I do think just having those conversations and asking questions too, hey, how was your day today? What keeps you up at night? What do you wish you could change? Those kinds of things really helps to refine that skill.
No, definitely. I love that. And I think just like I've found, especially from learning from people who are making the shift into to this profession, it's like having exposure to these conversations and all these like different sides and parts of the sales process, just it enriches kind of how you think about it. Because I feel like a lot of people, they assume, hey, you know, you are just a person who's showing up and doing a demo. And there's just so many more layers to that. And I think the more you get exposed to the process and these steps along the way, it's just like, oh, you know, maybe I'm going to tweak how I approach this in the future, or this is how I would approach this with a different persona or person coming into the sales conversation.
Absolutely. I think also just being in pre-sales, we're in a unique position because we're not putting a contract in front of people most of the time.
Yeah.
So we're not really asking for anything from them except for their time. So you're also you're going to these conversations and people naturally kind of have their guard down. So I think being able to recognize that and again meet them at that level is going to be very beneficial.
Yeah, it's actually a big advantage. We are allowed to do a lot of fun stuff like doing a demonstration to show really the value, but let's say negotiation, cold calling, organization, administration, all this stuff, somebody else can do it or has to do it. I think we're in a unique position. Yeah, like you said, if you really like tech and to explain tech and show the value of tech, I mean, that can become one of your dream jobs.
Well said. Then kind of building off all those past answers about skills, obviously each of y'all made the transition into this profession. I'm curious, what advice would y'all give to individuals transitioning from other industries into pre-sales? And since Mickey just went off mute, I'm going to have you start.
I'm too fast on the mute button. All right.
Exactly.
I would say build your network. And I'm sure everyone else is going to be on the same page here. Build your network, get to know the folks that are in the space. And then honestly, just get your hands dirty. Get in there. Start to play around with the technology that you're interested in. Like Tobias mentioned, like find something that intrigues you and dive in on it. I personally am a bit of a generalist, so it's kind of funny saying it coming from me, but I do think it's important to, at minimum, just understand like who your network is, who they, what they do, what the experience like is as an SE, and then what like learning the basic technologies if you're not in sales. What is Gong? What is Salesforce? What are those little things that could be nuanced to you as you go into a new role, right? Hey, I'm really excited. I finally got into this position. I transferred into it. Now I not only need to learn a whole new world of what it is to be a solutions engineer, a solutions consultant, whatever title we're going to give it, right? And then from there, say, what do I do next? Oh, I need to learn Gong. I need to learn Salesforce. I need to learn all these systems on top of it, on top of the technology I'm about to demo. So I would say those are kind of the top things for me.
I'll jump in. I think another one just to help, regardless of where you're coming from within an organization, if it's technical or implementation or things like that, something that I think is accessible to most is being able to build like a value or a story library. So recognizing the pains in the industry and what your clients are typically facing, and then recognizing how your solution fits into that and how it helps, and being able to kind of have a quick list, a reference, whatever it may be, of these things. It will start to build that muscle of communicating value, which is a main goal of pre-sales. So to start to build that muscle, and then also can just be used as a repository, or to Mickey's point, get your hands dirty, start doing like dry demos with people, have informational interviews with sales or pre-sales in your organization, and be like, this is what I'm thinking and how I would position this. Do you think that would resonate? And I would personally start there.
I am actually going to jump in and add on that. I have a pen in my hand, and I know the running joke of like, how do you sell a pen? Like that's that, show me how to sell it. But it's how would I, what like practice learning? How would I demo what a pen is? Like, let me take it apart and tell you what's on the inside. What are the details of it? Be able to do that because that's going to transfer. You'll be able to use that and focus in on those skills.
Nice. Okay, then building off that question, obviously we spoke a lot about, what are some highlights of the profession and like some things that we like think are necessary, especially for skills and things to keep in mind as you're making the transition. I'm curious if y'all want to address any common misconceptions about pre-sales, and if you have any kind of misconceptions that you would like to debunk for people who are exploring this career.
I'll start if the team's okay with that. So
yeah, go for it.
I think one for me is when the organization looks at pre-sales, I'll use solution consultants specifically, right? Because pre-sales, there's multiple facets. the ones conducting the demonstrations, that they're looked at as just the demo monkey or the demo jockey, call it whatever you want. You show up, don't care from that standpoint. I think a misconception is how much time and effort that we are, and the great SCs are, is taking the time to learn about their customer. So we mentioned, and the team did a great job talking about learning your industry, but I take a lot of great pride in learning the customer's pain points, going through, finding out different details, reading their 10K. Again, I'm focused on the recruiting software. So I'm learning about their career site, what events they're doing, and tying that back into my demonstrations with customer references. And that we take a lot of pride in the wins as well. And the one thing we hate the most, which happens often, still happens here, is the win email comes out, hey, congratulations, seller, for closing this deal, and shout out Tyler for doing demos. We do a lot more than that. And depending on your product, of course, and recognizing depending on your industry, just doing a demo, what the misconception is that we just show up, we're ready to go. There are hours that go into prep, and there should be, right? There should be the personalization. Every demo should be a standout, especially in a market where it's flooded with a lot of competitors that look just like yours. Obviously, the UI, UX will be different, but that's where an SE can stand out. That's where we can drive the deals forward, is by building that connection, building their rapport, and standing out in the sales process. So we're not just demo monkeys. We're much more than that from that standpoint.
That's almost exactly what I had written as well, Tyler.
Same.
We're not just demo monkeys. It's, while the end goal may be the same, it's provide a viable solution and close the deal. Ultimately, the paths that you can take to get there are very flexible. And C. Bryant actually called it out in the chat, the flying by the seat of my pants. I really like that mindset. And I think it just highlights that we can be very creative in how we achieve that end goal. And yeah, we're not just demo monkeys.
No, very well said. I feel like that's one that comes up all the time when I'm talking with prospective students. They're like, I just want to demo all the time. I'm like, there's a lot more to that, like the build up and your discovery processes. And I know that some companies don't require their SCs to do discovery, but there's so much of that still plays into how you're setting yourself up. And it's not like you're just walking through the same thing over and over again. Like, come on, there wouldn't be that many people in this profession, in this community, if we were just doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I will add, you made a comment where it was like, we're just doing demos, or we're just doing one or two other things. And a lot of people will say pre-sales is just selling. And I think that came up a couple times. It's like, no, we do it's so much more. You said discovery, and you're like, we don't always do discovery, but we still do discovery. We still dive in and we ask questions, and we still take it. We take what the AEs, the BDRs, and everyone does, and we just loop it into one thing and say, hey, here's the value. Here's why you're going to buy it. This is what it's good for. We don't have to do, like Jordan said, the selly part. We build the relationship. We get them to get intrigued, but we also get to say, hey, the misconception is I'm not just selling, I'm actually proving the value. I'm showing you why this is important. I'm making it worth it, and making friends along the way, I guess we could say.
Yeah. The one thing I was just going to add is, even on top of that, I always, you look at pre-sales as the glue between sales and product. And I think that's something that, while some, depending on your company, you may have solution consultants focused on just prospect. You may have solution consultants just focused on customer. You may have just solution consultants that bounce around, but the role is so dynamic that you could be doing something different every week. I know we have teams that, we're heavily supporting on the marketing team. Marketing needs new assets and a new demo. Who are they tapping? A customer is, going up for renewal, and they have a new, leader in place that's in charge of the budget of your solution, and they want to see that solution in action, why it's invaluable to their team. You bring in pre-sales. So we're so dynamic, so critical. I always kind of refer to the point of, we are the engine in the car, to use a car analogy from that standpoint. Like, if you stop the pre-sales team from thriving, your business is going to take an impact for sure.
No, I agree. And I think it's just so funny that a lot of y'all who came into this space with like, oh, I never thought it was going to end up in sales. And yes, you're in sales, but this is not a typical sales role. It's just so different. And like, I feel like if y'all were like ended up in like a real sales role, you wouldn't be having this conversation with me right now.
Oh, why not? With you, we would always would have a conversation. But kidding by side, it's really, our job is very, very diverse. I mean, like you said, it's sometimes marketing needs a recording, or then you have to help a client who is already a client to show them what the solution can do. as well. No day is the same. So you wake up in the morning, and while you have a specific structure, you're solving every day different challenges.
Yeah, no, I think that actually kind of leads into a question that I wanted to direct to more of my senior people in the panel is obviously some of y'all been in the profession for a bit. I'm kind of curious for just context for everyone else in the audience is like, how has the profession evolved since you've started? And what changes have you noticed to be necessary for still succeeding in this profession? Because I feel like this profession is constantly changing, especially as we're seeing the tech landscape changing. I'm curious, Tyler or Tobias, if y'all have thoughts on this.
Go ahead, Tobias.
Yeah,
Got you off
yeah.
on.
I think the change is huge. I think for those who are new to solution consult or pre-sales, let's say 10 years ago, you didn't have this role really because there was no need, because the software solution weren't as complex as they are today. Often an account executives, they just did the demoed 5 features, that's it. Then suddenly everything became so complex, and the industry said, hey, we need a role who's focusing only and doing valuable demonstration, because everything changes and evolves so fast. Then COVID hit, and you're not driving by car or by flight to a client anymore. So you're doing most of the time remote. And now we're getting into the next stage, and the next stage is video. So a client doesn't have to be there at the place at the right time to see what you're doing. They can watch a video up front as well, and you can use the results to verify and to refine your live demo later. So the influx of technology is huge, and you constantly have to learn new skills. And that's the reason we are coming back to the growth mindsets. If you don't like change, that's not your role. If you really like technology and change, then you will have a lot of fun. But yeah, technology is rapidly evolving.
I think where I've seen it evolve specifically is how the role's been expanded and created additional growth within the department itself. So when we were back in the day, we were called sales engineers. Again, we were doing demos. You did some RFP work, so answering some questions from that standpoint. Now we have dedicated teams in pre-sales just focus on demo sites. They do a great job building up the assets to support solution consultants. Then we have what we refer to as almost like a solution architect, which is like the next level of not doing demos often, but they're truly very technical and can provide things like an SOW at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's been diverse as far as like the different roles. And again, I think for pre-sales, there's also a great kind of career path there, right? So if, let's say you started almost like a solutions associate, working at the RFP level, answering questions, learning your product, elevate to a consultant, which is where you're working with customers, doing demonstrations, architect. Again, this is just my own experience, but that's where I've seen it expand. And then also where it's been changed a lot or evolved, obviously, is specifically from demonstrations. Tobias called out video. I mean, for a while there, on-sites were key. I mean, I think before I left iCIMS, I'm a Boomerang employee, by the way. I forgot to mention that. I left iCIMS and kind of came back for some different journeys. But when I left iCIMS, I traveled 156 days that 1 year. And I was just better on site. You get me in a room full of people, and it was just, I preferred demos that way. Now it's all video. Then obviously, as we all know, COVID kind of shut that down and now made us creative of, we have to get smarter on video. What little assets can we do? And again, back to solutions, we have a whole team spun up on just now demo assets, working with Reprise, Figma, creating short little videos and teasers that, again, that marketing is constantly asking for, sales is asking for, product needs for their rollouts. So it's always evolving and changing from that standpoint, which is great.
Yeah.
More opportunities to make an impact.
Do you want to go, Tobias? You good?
I know, I just want to add, so if you're on YouTube and successful, hey, maybe, and you don't like YouTube anymore, maybe you want to become a pre-sales engineer.
Yeah,
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, following up on the second part of what Tyler said was, I feel like it's moved towards buyer enablement, where it's like, we need to spend the time and have more personalized demos, reusable assets. Like you mentioned, we're building at, like, it's changing in that we're not just going out and doing demos and talking to people. We're having like really personalized demos. We're having demo tools and product-led growth like strategies coming into play as well. Like you mentioned a couple of products, like, yeah, we have videos, we've been doing all of that, but that's changing as well. And I'm seeing that especially with my last role, focusing on demo automation and creating demos, you really start to see the change of where the industry is going. And we can have our basics, but we need those personalized to really dig in and dive in.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's interesting. Like, to be honest, I've only been exposed to pre-sales for like the last 2.5 years. And it's interesting just to see and hear about all these changes that have been made. And it is kind of around like, hey, how are we engaging that buyer enablement journey? And I love also just hearing about, yes, we talk about pre-sales in regards to that like sales engineer, solution consultant role, but there's also just so much cross collaboration with like, hey, you could take so much of that you learned from this role and go into those other solutions-based roles that have been formed from this profession as well. And they all kind of bounce off each other and go into the buyer journey. So no, I think these are good points of context, especially if you're considering like how you might fit into this profession. Because if you are someone who's like, hey, I want change and variety, hey, this profession is always changing and there's going to be variety, especially when you're working with products that are always trying to be cutting edge with what society needs. So I love all those notes. I want to do a little shifting of gears. I know earlier in our conversation, there were talks about mentoring and networking. So I want to kind of go back into that detail, especially when we're thinking about pre-sales careers. Before I ask my question, just as a reminder for my audience, if y'all have any questions for our panelists, please drop it in the Q&A. I'm going to take about a couple more questions from my standard list, but then I'm going to open it up for Q&A from the group. So if y'all have any questions, please share it. I love the amount of engagement in the chat right now, but put the questions in the Q&A so we don't lose them. But my question for my panelists. So I'm curious what y'all think about like what role does mentorship and networking really play in building a successful pre-sales career? And do you have any tips for others as they're trying to approach and start this journey? Tyler, do you want to go first?
Sure, I think it has everything to do with it. I mean, I'll use myself as an example. I'm not the SC I am today if it wasn't for mentorship and being able to network and watch another SC in action, right? So coming in, I think that's the best thing you can do is, especially if you're in your organization, if you're looking to go into a pre-sales role in your current organization, shadow that top performer SC. Why specifically is it that they are good in your organization, in your industry, et cetera? Is it because they are very knowledgeable? Is it because they are a great presenter? And just learn from that and shadow from that. You can learn different styles, right? You always want to make sure that you are, at the end of the day, we are sales. So you're selling, not training somebody. So that's the biggest thing I kind of drive my team is it has to be impactful to that organization you're talking to. So by mentoring or shadowing a top performer or someone that has a good elevation from that standpoint is something I would definitely recommend on what good looks like, right? You have your own personal style, and I definitely recommend everybody go about, even if you see someone else do something, don't rinse and repeat, which is why I was joking with Mickey for our scripts. Like, I think demo scripts are great for new individuals coming online to learn the standard talk track, but you got to make it your own. It's got to come natural to you. So even if you watch someone else do something a certain way, maybe it's demo staging or it's something, a value statement they said, or as Jordan called out, customer success stories that should absolutely be included in all your demonstrations that tie back to that customer you're talking to. You're going to learn and tweak those. So it's very critical to make sure. And that's why, to be honest, I joined PSC and in general about 4 years ago was to continue that networking. Because again, back to growth mindset, like we said, while I think I'm good, I know I'm not great and I can be better every day. And it's learning for everybody else and being humble about that going forward.
That was a good answer.
Yeah.
I would follow that. I just really think mentorship and networking is absolute game changer. I got very lucky to have to find a mentor very early in the game, and it changed it for me. And I network like crazy, and I always say networking is number one. And like I go and respond to people, message people on LinkedIn that I've never met before, and I'll say, hey, I see you're working at this place. I'm so intrigued just to know what it's like there. Like, will you want to chat for 30 minutes? And almost nobody says no. And people message me all the time. I'm always open to chat. I love to build my community. PreSales Collective. That's what we're here for, right? Like, this is what it's designed for. Use it. Network. Talk to people. Like, that's number one. You're looking for a job? Network, get to know your people. My last 3 jobs were found through a network. Someone said, hey, I know your experience, I know your skills. You might be a good fit. Why don't you take a look and try it?
And I think
Yeah.
having, oh, sorry.
No, I just want to say, I mean, actually in life, there are no shortcuts. The exception is maybe mentorship. I mean, it's a time shift. It's a time machine. If you have somebody who walked the walk already, it's the best thing. I mean, it's not only, I think, in pre-sales, it's for everything in life. If you have a mentor, if you find your Yoda, then the life of Luke Skywalker will be much easier.
I'm actually going to end on that Star Wars reference. I don't know. That was perfect.
Nothing else. Then kind of building off those past answers, I'm curious, do y'all have any tips for finding like a mentor as you're starting out the process? Like Mickey, what was that process like for you to find a mentor that you clicked with?
Yeah, so mine was very coincidental. I was involved in the community of Nintex like community as a customer and just chatting with everyone. And I happened to talk to someone who was in the role. And from there, he's not really like a mentor the way someone would be heavily dedicated, but always my go-to person. Hey, what are you seeing in the industry? What are you getting to know? Like, for example, I'm currently looking for work, right? What do you see what's going on? Take a look at my resume. What do you think? Different things that have helped me move past different steps. What does it look like to be interviewing? What are these different things that are happening around me? Finding one, like I said, just shoot a message. I became a mentor to someone who literally just shot me a message on LinkedIn and said they were interested, and now they messaged me to say I have a demo coming up. I'm interested to show this. Do you think you'd give me some tips and tricks? Sure, no problem.
No, I love when a mentor-mentee relationship is like something that comes organic, but also is one that kind of like has that back and forth over time. You want to think about, hey, how are you putting in more than you're getting out at times? Because that's what's going to make it long lasting as well.
100% agree. You have to keep it going back and forth.
Definitely. Well said. Okay. I want to ask y'all one last question before I open it up for our audience. So obviously we've shared a lot of tidbits about your own journeys, skills we want to see in this profession, as well as kind of just general knowledge from everyone in the panel. I would love to hear what is one action or takeaway that you encourage the audience to implement after this event. And I will have Jordan start.
I think going back to one of the things we talked about earlier was that value or story library building, that would be super helpful. But another way to just kind of flex the pre-sales muscles, I think, is just asking open-ended questions. That's what discovery is asking open-ended questions. So just in your like daily life, instead of, asking like, oh, did you have a good day today? Be like, how was your day? Tell me what you did. Like easy ways to kind of implement that muscle building into everyday conversations is where I would start, I think.
And follow-up questions on top of that. Don't just take a question as the answer and open it, like walk me through that. And even a good question in an answer is, you get asked a product question and or maybe you don't know if it does it or doesn't. You can say, is this something you're doing today? Is that going forward, right? And that also allows you back to problem solving is kind of quick pivot. The more questions you ask, the more they're talking, you now get time to either get something ready in your demonstration or ping somebody really quickly for an answer, for a lifeline. So always keep asking questions.
I think I could add to that because it leads kind of into what I was going to suggest as well. But adding to that is don't be scared to ask. There's no silly questions. There's no dumb questions. Just ask. If someone thinks it's a dumb question, they'll tell you, but they'll answer it, right? Like, you should know this answer, but here's what it is, right? There's no silly questions. But what I would really focus on is your storytelling skills. So the questions, definitely, but your storytelling skills, whether it's pre-sales or anything else in your life. I mentioned earlier, like demo a pen. Practice the story of why it is important to use a pen in your day-to-day. Why wouldn't I use a pencil? What's the value of a pen over a pencil? Something so silly can take your skills to the next level.
I would. Because we were talking about the next or to start in pre-sales, I would say define your target role. So if you know what you want and why, hiring managers will see you more competent. And hiring managers want people who are committed. So if you know exactly why you want this role and what you want, you're gonna you will have an advantage and stand out.
I'll just put a bow on it. I think the one thing that no one's going to prepare you for, but you got to do it yourself, is get comfortable at being in the uncomfortable. I think that's something that you just, from presenting, if that's something you're nervous about, getting in front of a room of like 500 people, to, sometimes not all software, especially in SaaS, there's been times where I've been at an onsite and our software went down for 20 minutes. Not at this company, somewhere else. But there's, from that standpoint, it's definitely something you just want to take note of and just be comfortable of, again, be able to breathe and pivot. And I think that's part of the best SCs are able to kind of problem solve on the fly, move through, comfortable in the uncomfortable. Because again, you're an expert, you know the industry, you know your product, you know your customer, you did it all, and just be able to breathe and kind of move through it all versus being flustered. That takes time. That's easier. That's way easier said than done.
I second that, Bo.
No, that is an amazing way to wrap it up. Thank you all for all those amazing nuggets of information. And for everyone who's watching, I hope y'all are taking notes, because I've been taking notes just to keep in my list of tidbits that I share with my students that I work with at PreSales Academy. So let's get into some of our audience questions. The first one I have for the group is classic AI question, because I feel like that's always popping off nowadays. So how do you think AI is going to affect the pre-sales / solutions consultant role? And are you using AI in your day-to-day work?
Daily. I think if you're not, I saw a good stat where like AI is not going to replace us, and not going to go from that standpoint, you're not going to lose, but you're going to be at a significant disadvantage if you're not leveraging AI, because your competitors are, your other people are, from that standpoint. There are ways now you can use AI to uncover or learn more about the organization you're going to talk to. There's ways you can use AI to understand, based on the organization you're talking to, how does your company stack rank against another organization? For those out there seeking jobs, there's also ways to leverage AI to look at a job description and look at your current resume or CV and give you recommendations on where to build up your resume. So these prompts, the commands are all out there. As far as a function standpoint, or a software standpoint, we use Gong AI. So we actually get summary analysis on key talking points, next steps. So from using AI as an individual to prep for a demo and doing additional discovery to, again, I'm in the talent acquisition software. So if I'm working with a healthcare organization, I can use AI to help me create 10 resume examples for a registered nurse. And I can get that in my demo environment. So I'm using AI to help prompt and demo stage, in addition to tools to uncover like sales next steps as well.
I agree with that, in that you need to use it, honestly. It's part of the day-to-day. I used it regularly, especially around if I kind of have an outline, or I know what I want to talk about, but maybe I just need a little help, or I can't find the words for what it is that I want to use. I'll just throw it into somewhere and say, help me say this better, right? Like, how do I word this properly? Or maybe I hear a problem from a customer, but it doesn't maybe make sense to me. I'll throw it into AI. What is this? What are they trying to explain? What are these letters that they're using? Because I'm not part of this industry. I've never heard these letters before. There's a lot of letters out there. Everything has a letter, an acronym, there's something. Maybe you don't know it. AI can do it, especially around like demoing too. What are the problems? How can I focus on this value? So on and so forth.
Nice. I want to get to some more questions. I know acronyms are a lot at times. So I have a scenario in the Q&A, but I won't read out the whole thing. But basically, do y'all have any tips for reaching out to network with someone you have no connections with? How do you really break the ice?
I do it all the time. I feel like I'm taking over, but I do it all. I reach out to people all the time. I just shoot a message and say, hi, I'm interested in XYZ. Are you open to chat? They say yes or no.
Yeah,
That's
say what you
really
want.
how I do it. Yeah, dive right in.
Yeah.
The worst thing they can do is say no.
I think taking the pre-sales mindset as well of learning who you're talking to before you talk to them is key. That's right. So you did the homework, you can see that you're not connected with them, but do you have any similarities? Do you notice that maybe their backdrop picture is in a place you visited recently on vacation? Did they graduate high school or college or university from somewhere you did, or a family member? whatever hook you can have in that second or third sentence to kind of make it, oh, this person's, we have some connection here in general, that will start to build a higher response rate typically.
Yeah. I think personalization is so key nowadays.
Yeah.
Like it pays to make it a little bit more like exciting and unique to the person. Like I know sometimes we're doing heavy volume of networking at times, especially if you're job seeking, but it pays to do that, especially because I would agree with the original poster. Like you need to network nowadays to kind of get the ball going with opportunities. Jordan, were you going to say something?
I was just gonna agree with everyone. I think just kind of take the plunge, put it out there, ask the question, but definitely make it personal. Whatever that hook can be, I think I mean, I've gotten messages before and sometimes it's just the run of the mill, like, oh, you copy pasted this, and it's like, I'll still respond, absolutely. But if someone actually is like, saw you did this 4 years ago, I'm like, oh my gosh, you care.
Yeah, he looked at me.
Yeah.
That sounds basic, but spell check over, especially if you're doing multiple messages, make sure you update their name. I got reached out to last week. It wasn't even my name. Instant decline. Is even if it's a nice message or like,
Yeah. Or use video if you're not good in grammar. Just use a loom. I mean, the last time somebody sent me on Twitter a video message, and that stand out for me. It's like, oh, because he put the effort in, it was natural, and I immediately had a better idea how this person is. And so don't be shy. Use video as well.
Okay, I'm gonna have us do one more question. There's a question about job leveling once in the role, and I'm gonna rephrase it a little bit, but do you feel like within the pre-sales profession, what's really important for making sure you're not hitting a ceiling within the role and continuing to grow? We'll end the conversation on that note.
Learn. We kept talking about growth. I would say dive in on the technology if you don't know it, right? As someone who's not as technical as some of the other folks in the roles, get to know the technology. If you're not as technical, if you are super technical and you're not as personable, focus in on those skills. If those are where you feel you've mastered both of them, okay, what are you missing? Look at what a higher role is. What's the difference? Something I used to do with former managers is, this is the role that I'm in, this is the role that I want to be. What am I missing? What do I need to do? How do I get there? And a lot of people tend to forget to constantly do that on their own and advocate for themselves. And I think that's really important to make sure you do. Ask the questions, and then you'll find out how you can move through the stack.
Yep. I think we had Patrick just threw something in the chat. There is, companies should be supporting 2 tracks, individual, or I'll say IC, and leadership.
Yeah.
And what you need to do in both is drastically different. Obviously, because leadership comes with a whole nother burden, and from that standpoint, providing feedback, etc. But each, to make this point, always learning, always growing. I think to make sure you're not hitting a ceiling, and as you get to that point is, again, going back to our initial point, this is a team that works with different departments. So start collaborating with other leaders as well to reach out from how your team can better support them and vice versa. And especially obviously working with product. What you want to do is basically kind of going back to my product role, like they need feedback from sales, and good organizations are open to that feedback and how you can help consolidate some of that information of asks, but also how it impacts the dollar amount as well.
Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to be mindful of everyone's time. I would love for everyone in the audience to extend a very warm round of applause to our panelists. Thank you so much, Jordan, Tyler, Tobias, Mickey. Y'all have shared so many great tidbits. So thank you all for sharing your stories. For everyone here, thank you for being present and engaged. I'm going to once again post the link for the Pathways report. If y'all have any questions from this panel, feel free to reach out to me or anyone else in the space, but it was amazing engaging with you all. And I hope everyone has a good Tuesday, and we'll see y'all around the community.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.